Tuesday, May 1st. Happy May Day, everybody. It is the policy subcommittee meeting. We'll go around the room, say who's here. Andrew, we'll start with you, please.
Andrew Henny is the attorney for the committee.
Okay. Rachel Santa, Director of Special Services.
Kenny Dewey, Superintendent.
Erin Earl, School Committee Chair.
Jennifer Lima, school committee member.
Colleen Schnack, School Nurse Teacher.
Lisa Ennis, School Nurse Teacher.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. There's nobody here for public comment. First thing on the agenda is to review, to approve the minutes from our last meeting. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the April 8th meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. The
Aye.
voting members here tonight are myself, Dr. Earl, and Dr. Duba. All in favor? Yes. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to go out of order on the agenda to accommodate the school nurses who very generously are coming tonight to discuss the protocol for the administration of medical marijuana. We had discussed this at the last meeting, and just to reiterate, this is a policy that all districts are required to have based on the Rhode Island Department of Health. The draft that we discussed last week is, at the last meeting is basically entirely from the regulations, but we had asked, administration had asked their team and the nurses to review. And Colleen, do you want to talk through some of your thoughts on this after your review of it?
Sure. I think, the nurses are not opposed to the administration of medical marijuana. I think there's a place for sure for this therapy. But because it's not FDA approved, we're not licensed to administer it. It is in conflict with our nursing license, and our nursing license allows us to practice and to work. It also the school nurse liability insurance that most of us go through, Nursing Service Organization, did tell one of our former nurses, Linda Twelowski, who is also board president of Rhode Island School Nurse Teacher Association, that they would not be able to support a nurse should there be some sort of issue in liability. So this particular draft, is written that, and I understand that it's directly from the regs.
Yeah.
And I remember this, coming up, but it's written that pretty much the school nurses would be responsible for administration of it. It's not that we don't want to, it's just that we can't. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think the regulations provide for a parent or guardian to administer it where needed. Is that correct?
Yes. Looks like number 5. The school nurse, or building administrator, if a nurse is not in the building, shall document each dose of medical marijuana administered to a student by a parent guardian as per the standing orders. I think that would be my recommendation, is that a parent guardian or a responsible adult do the administration.
I think that does happen even with some other medication that maybe perhaps we don't have an order for,
Mm-hmm.
and a parent's like, they forgot to take something in the morning.
Parents will come in and bring medication. I remember about 20 years ago, herbal remedies were being, ordered and used for all sorts of different diagnoses, and that was also that was another sticking point that we weren't able to, because they're not FDA approved, and we weren't able to administer herbal remedies, and parents would come in and administer them.
Like like in the nurse's office or wherever the.
Yeah, or the office,
Yeah,
yep.
somewhere,
Yeah,
okay.
we document that, it was given by the parent or guardian.
So what needs to change, so we have the version here, right?
Yeah. So, and then I had put in the,
So we have a red line that already.
yes, I was just gonna say, I put in the folder, a red line, with some suggested
Is
changes.
it's the one that has Colleen's, like, name on it, right?
Yes,
That
yeah,
title?
yeah. So I don't know, how many changes we can like, how far we can deviate from the regulations without that then becoming a concern.
So I will tell you, I've met with nurses for all of my clients, and I know this is a common
yep.
theme, so please don't
Yeah,
take
it's valid.
anything,
Yeah.
Nope.
you know, I get it and I understand the conflict, and I mean, the regulation and the policy does carve out and makes it clear that a nurse cannot be required to administer this. A couple of just concerns that I had, I don't think you can require parents to administer. In fact, I know you can't.
Okay.
So if a parent wants to come in and administer, that's fine. If they don't, we need to find another way to administer the medication. We cannot require a school nurse to do it, but I've seen districts use a principal, an assistant principal, someone else to do it. And I think there was a question here about storage, same thing. I've gotten various, really good conversations, but various degrees of pushback, I'll call it, as far as from the nurses who, we don't even want it stored with our, some have been, quite frankly, okay, it's okay if they store it there, but I'm not administering it. I've had other nurses, that were pretty adamant, no, we're not even comfortable storing it there, in which case it's incumbent on the school and the administration to find another safe place to store it.
And in those cases, just like, is it just the regulation is the policy and then those are just handled,
Yeah, I mean, I think they're handled, I think there does need to be some discussion and understanding throughout the administration and the nurses and the building folks, like, how are we handling this? If it's not through because obviously if it's handled through the nurses, we've got all the procedures, we've got all the protocols, it's done. These aren't, and I understand that. None of my clients, I can tell you, have been like, oh, great, we'll administer it and no problem. That has not happened. So I know they've come up with, various protocols depending on the school. I have had nurses tell me they would administer it. I have no idea if they did or not. I will be honest, the insurance is the first time I've heard that. It's an interesting, very interesting point. I wasn't made aware of that by anyone else I've spoken to. I have had nurses say that they had no problem administering it personally. I've had other nurses say unequivocally no. And so what I've told folks in that situation is that's absolutely the school nurse is right, but we need to figure out a way to store it. We need to figure out a way to administer it. And that's on us. If the parent wants to do it, that's fantastic. But I have been involved in a situation where, parents working, whatever it was, we can't come in and administer. I've got the I've got what's necessary under the law. Someone's got to give it to Andrew. And in that case, we can't say, well, only a parent can do it.
I think the issue with putting it in the medication cabinet with the other controlled substances is, right now, the nurse who is administering the medication is the only one going in and out of that cabinet. You start putting others, other substances in there that the nurse isn't administering, other people are going into the cabinet, there's a number of other medications that we keep track of, so that's the sticking point.
And I don't discount that at all, and that actually had come up. I don't remember what district it was. There was talk about setting up a separate, secure, safe type area in like the assistant principal, the principal's office, solely
So
for this
we could-
purpose.
so we
Because
could
that did come up.
For for that part of the policy, we could put, or, like, cause depending on, like, we had talked before about maybe the nurse, like, we'll keep track of the information, but they're not the actual one administering, but, so maybe we could just add language in, or saying, like, in there, or a secured space somewhere else, like separate from that area. Like,
Correct,
we can add
and-
that in as an option, depending on what makes the most sense for the building administrators,
100%,
et cetera.
and like I said, different building level, and in fairness, the building level administrators have a level of comfort or discomfort with this as well. So I mean, I think it really is a dialogue.
If this ever even happens, to date, we have not had, and I'm not saying it's never
I
gonna
think
happen.
it's gonna bring up concern, right? It's gonna bring up concern regarding a building
shocked at that.
administrator if
What-
we do have it and where it's being stored.
What I would say
Whose
is,
office is it being stored in?
there's concern, but I will say this, all the talks I've given and we've had great conversation, other than the one parent issue, I have yet to have, like, oh my gosh, Andrew, this is happening. You know, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if districts just figure it out or someone in the building's willing to do it. I have never had to address an actual situation other than hey, we've got all this documentation, and in that particular case, I think it was the building principal was fine administering it. It's like, but I'm being told that only the parents can do it. I said, no, take a look at what it is. If it's incumbent on us. We can't require the parents to leave work and come in and do it. You can't. If they've satisfied all the other criteria, including signing off like they're required to and everything else, we've got to find a way to administer it.
And I think for this particular policy, because we're mandated to do it and we have mandated language, we just need to put in the language to make it an either or, so that when a situation happens, then we have options. But then also, if we then have challenges at that point with the policy can always be adapted. So I feel like we just have to write it knowing that we have the nurse issue, which is a very valid one, and then if we get into a situation where it's X, Y, and Z, there isn't anyone in the building willing to administer it, the parents can't come, then you could always adopt the policy. I don't think we can do all of the what ifs and ands because it's a tricky one. I think we just have to do our best and then.
Yeah, it depends a lot. It depends on,
figure it out.
as Dr. Duva pointed out, depends on the level of comfort for the building level administrator, assistant principal, and storage. When we had that conversation,
Situation differently
certain
depending
people,
on-
we don't have space in the office. I did have one nurse. Well, they had a separate container that wasn't being used,
Like a little
or an older
locker.
one. They said, well, we can use that and we'll label it. And that particular nurse didn't have a problem taking it in, checking the boxes and doing everything. His position, I think, was, I'm just not going to administer it. That's against our national organization. It's not FDA. Same thing that you folks have said. So in that case, we just need to figure out, well, then who will? And if it's the parents, that's great. If that works out, that's probably the most ideal situation for everyone. I'm just saying you can't require it.
So if I'm hearing correctly, at the end of the day, the school nurses can't be mandated because of, the licensing. If they choose to, that's on them and that's fine. If they choose to, it has to be, you can't choose to give it to Johnny and not choose to give it to Julie.
Well, that's perhaps even right. You can't say, well, I think you really need it, so I'll give it to you, but
Right.
you have never liked, so I'm going to rely on the
Yeah,
FDA.
you can't pick and choose.
Exactly right.
And
Exactly
so,
right.
but if the school nurses are not, and I understand your concern about the language in there, so we'll make sure that that's kind of it's not uncooperative, I understand that. Then it defaults to, somebody in the building, but at the end of the day, it is the district's responsibility to ensure that somebody in the district, whether it's at that building or at an administration level, to administer the.
Provided
medication.
they've complied with everything that
Yes,
the family needs to
yes, yeah.
comply with in the requirements. Yep.
Okay.
So where's the part that we need to change about the cabinet? So it says it's on page, it's in 14, there's never page numbers on this. Where it says,
And right now, all it says is all medical marijuana to be administered by the school nurse.
must be kept in a secured cabinet
Cabinet.
designated by
Right.
the school. So it could be
be
different
anything.
than the one that we keep out, as long as it's secured, it doesn't
designated.
matter.
Yep.
Can we change school nurse to, I don't know, authorized personnel,
Yeah, and administered by the school. The red, that's in there in red. I'm not sure that was in the original, or maybe it was just highlighted by somebody. But yeah, that wouldn't be an issue because you can't require the school nurse to do it. That's clear.
yeah, so the additionally piece, I just looked at it and it said, well, on number 2, no school nurse shall be subject to disciplinary action, so thank you for that. And nothing in this part requires a school nurse to administer. Schools whose school nurse refuses, it does look like we're in cooperative, but I do think can't doesn't make any sense either, because I don't know, so maybe I guess it would need to stay refuses.
I mean, we could put something about, no, well, I guess it does say that,
What if we say not certified?
because it is not FDA approved.
Right, you're not certified to.
But I just want to be careful because
Yeah.
the statute does allow them to do it, and I know this doesn't
Yeah.
satisfy your concerns, but I mean there is language in here that says no Rhode Island licensing body will penalize a school nurse for administering it. That doesn't answer your insurance question.
But that also says with you go principal or school administrator,
Yep.
if you look in that law, right, it says not only school
Yep.
nurse, but it also lists other individuals would not be held liable.
Oh
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that part they're trying to make it as easy-ish
Mhm.
for you folks to do this as possible. They are giving you some immunity, you know what I mean, if you do it. You're right, it's not only school nurses. I think it just comes up with school nurses, because I know the national organization, it's not FDA approved.
Yeah.
And that is clear. So
And
it puts
it's-
you guys in a
and
tough
It's
spot.
not administered in any other clinical setting by a nurse, in the hospitals,
I know,
nursing homes.
I get these questions all the time, and I just kinda, I know, I'm sorry, I get it.
Yeah.
Yep, I do get it.
And that is definitely where people can reach out to their legislators. And no, I'm serious. And I completely hear you on it.
The only thing I would say is, to your point, it really has been a relative non-issue. And
Right.
maybe that's
Yeah.
lucky, or maybe,
Andrew.
you know, maybe parents by and large, if they're
Knock
getting it
on wood.
administered, yeah,
You just
exactly.
brought the
Yeah, good.
all-
That's-
Sorry.
that's cute.
It has, I mean,
No, but I think
That's
what
fine.
we have to remember too is that if a doctor feels that this is the best course of action for a student, there's a reason that it's the
Yeah.
best course of action for a student, right? Like, and so I don't think we need to question that, judge it, whatever. That's not what we're here for. We're here
Right.
to write a policy that's in as close as what we can get with a legislative body saying X, and then the FDA saying Y, and the nurses being caught in the middle. So I understand your concern about, it's not because they're saying no because they want to say no, it's because it's not
We
in
don't have
compliance.
to.
That completely makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And so if there's anything that we can do to make the language in this policy so that it feels, like, I know it's not the nurse saying, no, I won't help a student, like, that's so clear to me, but, so
You
if
just
there's
can't.
anything that you,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, and so, you were saying earlier, though, that the word can't
Well, I
wasn't
thought
the
like,
vibe,
It's,
yeah.
it's refuses, so I'm wondering, so.
Where do you see refuses? I
It's
saw
under,
Number
video.
four.
it's under 4, and right above it, it says, provided that the school nurse's decision not to, so I'm wondering if there's a way to phrase it instead of
Number
refuse.
four.
If the
Page
school,
one.
if the school nurse decides not to administer the medical, I mean, that's fine.
Or opts
Yeah.
not to, or,
Yeah.
you know, like,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
it-
ops, I think, is,
I-
yeah.
it's, it's the same sentiment,
Yeah.
but it's, that refusing, you're right, brings up the.
and maybe just this conversation, just having this conversation, you know, helps to clear.
Yeah, we wanna institutionalize it, though, because people will change and the document will stay, so, I do think we could do better with that word.
Yeah, I think so too.
What page are we on?
I need to start.
I think it
I
would
added
be-
them, I
I
did.
think it would
Just
be
refresh.
page 3, under 14.
Are we in the?
It's page
the
three.
name
Yep.
or the other
Yeah,
one?
the name.
So that would be.
The document with the
Oh,
red.
yeah, I see it.
The document with
So-
the red is my like I basically made a copy and
Yeah.
added notes and things, so that's not the draft, that's, you know, just my.
Do you see it?
Yeah, so it's number 4 on page 3, so schools whose
Instead of
nurses,
refuse, can we just say is unable to? Schools whose school nurses are unable to
That's not
administer,
That's not the, yeah.
cause like,
because they are unable to. Per
yeah, but
the-
what was it, Andrew
Yeah,
was saying is
I do
some
wanna
might
be
choose
careful.
to,
Well,
so.
yeah, I do think, my understanding, I do not know the insurance piece, like I said, that's it, just, I mean, it is their choice.
Yeah.
And they're absolved from any kind of liability right here in the policy. I
You
have
could just
had
say
school nurses tell me
schools-
they would, whether
Yeah.
they do or not, I
Yeah,
have no
so
idea.
If you wanna leave it as
You could,
refused.
no, but you could say schools whose nurses
Opt out,
will not.
decline to, or something
Decline
like
to?
that,
Yeah.
I think that's,
I think that's
it's
good
clearly
enough.
you're
Yeah.
right.
Is declined?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Alright.
clearly you're right, so it,
Can I change
yeah.
that?
Sounds like
Decline to.
And then just take out her parentheses
Yeah.
there.
Politely decline?
Respectfully
polite.
decline.
Yeah, there you go.
Respectfully decline, yeah.
And I did hear that there is movement towards, you know, towards FDA approval, and, you know.
Reclassing it as.
And,
Yeah, that
and
will-
pharmaceutical involved, you know, pharmaceutical company, you know, so, you know.
Yeah, in a
that as it
year or
may,
two,
they
that
may
might-
be
yeah.
looking to revise this policy at some
Yeah.
point in the future.
So above that on number 1, we're gonna say to administer by the, instead of the school nurse, would we just say the district, or would we say,
I say district personnel.
Oh, the additionally piece, all medical marijuana to be administered by district personnel must be kept in a secured cabinet designated by the school?
I mean, you could even say
You
all
don't even
medical
need to say-
marijuana to be
yeah.
administered on school grounds shall be
Yeah,
kept in a
yeah, that's
secure
what-
cabinet,
take
because
the
it could be the
people out of
parent
it.
that comes in
Yep.
and store it here, and
Yes.
I'll come in and
Yeah.
Yeah,
give it
but
to
I can't
Junior and
bring
then
it
head
up
out.
to
Yep.
administer
Mhm.
on school grounds, must be kept in a secure, okay. 3, that language came right from the regulation, the nothing in this part, was that,
Mhm.
is that okay? You had highlighted in red?
The under additionally 3.
Yes, yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of covers us, I would think.
I mean, I think that's directly from the
It's
regulation.
directly, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so, yeah.
That's the nothing in this part is the regulation language?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I know there was like a
Oh, it
big
was the-
lobbying effort, and I know there was a
the
lot of
grammar.
back and
It was
forth.
the grammar for me.
Oh, well,
That's
Yeah,
all.
like after our last meeting, I
Oh,
went back and I
because it was
took the
good.
regulation and I took
Yeah.
our policy to make sure we didn't have like anything extra or we
No,
were
we tried
missing
not to do, we
anything.
tried
Yeah,
not to
it
do
was
anything, this was
fair.
already controversial enough, try not to add
Yeah, I
anything to
think
this at all.
it just gets circulated all the districts.
Yep.
I know I talked to Westerly,
Yep.
last week, and East Greenwich.
What else are we?
How about, okay,
On
so
number 2, I think anywhere it says school nurse, it should say school nurse or like designated administrator.
So it's yellow highlighted, number 2, the school nurse, are you on that?
Yeah, I'm
number
going, I'm
2
going
on the
page
first
wise. I
page?
like to go in order.
Yeah.
but my brain.
So the school nurse shall visually inspect the student card and maintain a copy of the card in the student's medical file.
Yep, so my question was, should that say the school nurse or designated administrator?
Like, again, yeah, I think it could, that's
I
a
mean,
level.
we certainly could inspect a student's card and keep it on file.
And like I said, I had it, that was
That's
about
not
50-50. Some
violation.
said absolutely not a problem, others said, I just don't even wanna touch it, so.
We also.
This
that
should think
one-
putting both is fine, I mean, then you're kind of covered with both.
Where does it fall, Andrew, on the other side with like what nurses should be doing versus, like, you know, like,
I mean, my take, with all due respect, is I think the nurse can check it in and do whatever, they
Yeah.
just, their thing is we can't administer it.
Yeah.
And that's clear, and I think that's
Right.
clear in the regulation. I think most that I've spoken to are willing to sort of follow the protocol, just like if, you know, we don't think that the child requires Adderall, but we'll do it. We've got the doctor's note, let's check our boxes.
what were you saying, Ken?
Just the first sentence, North Kingstown requires a written process. I just want, instead of it putting in there that we require a written process, can we just state how we're doing it, so it's already in this policy? Because it makes it sound like now we need something else in addition to this.
Mhm.
I mean, if we're going to say that school nurse or designee
administrator.
or administrator is going to be inspecting the student's card, right?
That's the
And then
process.
if that's a medication they need, it's also gonna be in Aspen, right? It'll also be documented in the district student information system.
Mhm.
If we put that in there, that takes care of how it's being done. So then we don't need another document on top of this.
So putting it into Aspen, because we usually put the medications that we administer, like we're listed as a responsible, you know, person. If we put the medical marijuana in Aspen, we also documented, you know, our controlled substances on paper as well, we have like a controlled substance form. But if we're putting it in Aspen, it would make it look like we were giving it, unless we.
Couldn't we note who's
In the dialogue box,
administering
we
it,
said
right?
blah, 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 blah,
And that way we
administered
know
by,
too,
okay.
who's administering.
And I suspect, especially like in a platform like Aspen, it's going to, my experience is it's going to be somewhat different building by building. So that might be the spot, and maybe where the training is like however this is going to happen at the high school, however this is going to happen at the middle schools, let's put that right in Aspen, you know what I mean? Parents have agreed to come, it will be stored in the principal's room who has a secure thing, and it will be administered by the parents who have agreed to do so, or the, you know what I mean, that way, cause I think it could vary, obviously, parents doing it is the best, so that's the first option. But if not, then we need to have something in place and a process in place, where are we gonna keep it, and who's gonna administer it, so I think that it's gonna vary situation by situation.
So going back to number 2,
I was just gonna say that.
what are we,
Like, let me ask this, would the process for this be different than the process for any other medication as opposed, except for the verifying the card part?
No, I mean, we have a, you know, when we take medications in or give medications back, we have, a form, and that's in our medical standing orders, and that each dose is accounted for, and so the same would go for medical marijuana, cause it is a controlled substance.
Is there a
So we
policy
follow the
that,
same
that outlines?
process. We would
In the
follow the
medical
same
standing orders.
process for any other medication.
Yeah, and so I guess we would have to amend the medical standing orders to say medications and medical marijuana? Do we add medical marijuana?
You could just add
now?
it, like slash, I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Or say this, the policy include, is the same for medical marijuana, I can figure out what to say.
Do we know what policy?
Do you wanna?
Outlines that
mention them,
process?
like,
JLCE.
It's the one with the 8,000 medications in it, right?
Could we just reference that policy as far as like following the same, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think it's JLCE.
and that's the one that gets updated every year, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
With the medical director,
Yeah.
Dr. Silversmith.
the emergencies first aid medication infectious disease one.
Yep.
Yeah,
Jen also, that was a 6/6/23 one. So
Yeah.
if we do it every year,
Yeah, I usually do it with Dr. Silversmith.
Yep.
Like I get last year's policy from Jules,
Mhm.
and then we go through it with the nurses. We make,
Mhm.
corrections. I send it to Dr. Silversmith, he okays it, and then I send it back to Jules.
Mhm.
It usually happens in every June.
yeah, I was just thinking for the process of getting that approved, that was all.
Oh, got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
like
I mean,
timeline
and
wise,
we can
yeah.
do it in this, like, we can delay it, it doesn't have to be done, or whatever.
Yeah,
However-
yeah.
However I can be most helpful, it's usually
Mhm.
during June, but.
So Andrew, is that okay to reference that part?
Yeah, again, I've really tried to defer to the preference of the school nurses on that. That's why we left it a little vague, but if there's a comfort level to say we'll follow this process and maybe amend the form, but we're not gonna administer it, that's fine. The more we follow the typical process, the better off we'll be, 'cause
That's what I'm saying.
like anything
Yeah.
else, the more we deviate from it, we're going to open up,
Okay.
Right.
which assistant principal or whose office has the safe, and that, they have a process in place that's, basically, it's already established, everyone knows what it is. The more we can align with that, the better off we are.
It's like the medications in school part on page 8 of that other policy, the JLCE one. It doesn't really talk about,
talks about dosage, it's gotta be locked.
It's under the controlled substance.
yeah, it's under that, I
Yeah.
was just seeing that, yeah. I was looking to see if it talked about like how it, like what you were just saying about how it comes in and how it goes out of the physical building.
If the
Yeah.
form is not attached to the standing orders, we have it in a shared file with Jules, and I can certainly send you the file. It's pretty simple, the name of the student, the medication, number of tablets. The nurse signs it, or the building administrator signs it, and then the parent signs it.
So if we left it, North Kingstown requires a written process, like in order to keep it to the regulation and say that written process is outlined in our policy, JL, whatever, like
Yeah.
that way it marries the two together.
Yeah, I think that's fine, except it will, just for the part about it's about the written process for written instructions.
And then, a line under the controlled substance part could just be added that said the card must be checked each time, right? 'Cause isn't that part of this policy?
I don't think the card has to be checked each time, it's kept on, kept on file.
Take a copy of it.
Yeah, I imagine it probably expires and then a new card
Yeah,
needs to
okay.
be.
Yeah, I was just looking
It's a
at that.
compassion center card,
Okay.
is what you're gonna get.
Yeah. So 3, underneath, on the first page, is exactly, the same as any medication,
so just going back to Ken's statement about this part in purple, do we need this part in purple?
That's
Because it's part of the thing?
It's part of the,
Yeah, but all it's saying is that we have a written process. It's not saying, I don't think it has to be in the policy. It's saying that we have a written process, the
As
policy
long as you've
itself.
got the written process.
Right, and then if we just reference that, this policy, the GCLE,
Yeah.
Yep.
then we have our process.
And if I'll add the medical marijuana to the standing orders so that it's.
I'm just saying that
We
sentence
can say the
is,
North Kingstown School Department will follow policy JLCE for the administration of, or not the administration, but for the,
That would be a written process.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think the sentence has to be like that. It just,
okay, change it.
I think so. I would defer to Andrew. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think if you have a policy that already lays it out, you certainly could say, we will follow policy, as Dr. Dubé just said. That's outlining what your written policy is, so you'd be in compliance, or your written process.
So I
Yeah,
would
so-
say, I would have it say this. I'll put it in one thing.
Yeah, going back to the actual regulation, it says blah, 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 must develop, the protocols or procedures must include at a minimum the following, and then it says to, an established written process for verifying the student's medical board. So I think if we say, see policy.
Yeah, policy
yep.
JJJ is our established, I
Yeah.
mean, you don't have to say that, but
Yeah.
that would be the argument, yep.
Okay, I'm typing it in the thing, just give me a second, you'll see it when I hit the button.
Well, she types that. So the Compassion Center license is not part of the regulation, but I noticed some of the other policies had that listed. Is that something we want, don't want?
Yeah, I mean, I know our office put this together based on the regulations, I'd love to know who slid in Compassion said, I don't even know.
I might have
just-
slid it in.
Yeah,
like,
Yeah, but you got it.
maybe
from
someone in
somewhere.
my office
Yeah,
knows more than I do, I'm not entirely
No, I think I might
sure,
have
but.
gotten it from some of the other districts' policies.
Potentially, yeah.
When it says ingredients of product, does that mean like percentage or?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's the question I get.
Cause you'll get it either in a bottle, I don't take any of this, I just wanna be, maybe I should, but I don't. It either comes in a bottle with a dropper
Yeah.
that they'll put under the kid's tongue or in a beverage,
Okay.
or it comes in a gummy, and it will tell you exactly the percentage of THC
so
is,
that's
that's
what we're
contained, and
looking
it's
at,
not, doesn't
percentage of-
contain any of
yeah.
the stuff that makes you high.
Okay. Percentage.
I had a kid that was on it for seizures. So he had the droplets because he wouldn't eat a gummy, so they would put it into his beverage.
So the dose might even be like 1 drop under the tongue or something.
Yeah, or one drop into it, but yeah, it tells you exactly how much to
Got it.
give. Yep. And it's usually by droplets, yeah, not even by like milliliters or one of those baby Scooby things. That's a technical term. The baby measurement that looks like a little scoop, it's not like that, it's really droppers.
And so, who's gonna do, this was one of the other questions, is it the person who's doing the administering, who's doing the documenting of the dosage?
Well.
Cause what if it's the
So,
parent?
when, okay, so if someone else administers a medication, like say a parent comes in,
Parent comes in, cause we don't have an order.
then I will document, parent came in to administer daily medication. I don't, say exactly what it was, because, sometimes they just appear. So are we documenting, we're documenting that it was administered? We're not
Yeah.
giving it,
Yeah,
we're documenting.
if a parent's coming in and giving it,
Or if a school personnel is coming in to administer it,
and then we document it, right, and can't we just say who gave the medication?
documented by, administered by.
And again, same thing, I've had some school nurses say, we're happy to watch Dr. Duba administer it, okay, and check off, again, we didn't administer it, and I've had others say, we prefer that it's, I, Dr. Duba, administered 1 droplet per this.
Well, especially if it's staying at the school, we wanna document it, because then when you give it back, like you want it, like say there were 20 gummies in a thing, we're gonna need
Right.
to document that there's only 5
So,
left,
I-
like, you know,
I-
like,
Yeah, I think it would
just
have to,
saying.
People have gotten in trouble before for.
so
Yeah.
we would have to fill out the controlled substance form, and I think the person administering it needs to be responsible for the amount.
What I would do, and this is from a very civilian standpoint, is I would have them write it and then initial it. So like I'd be like, here, fill this piece of paper out, and it'd be like
Yeah.
10 milligrams,
Yeah.
like EE, like
Yeah.
this date, this time, here you go. Like I would hand them the piece of paper and be like, fill that out. I don't know if that's good enough, but
Would they record this, Colleen, in Aspen also? Cause you take notes into Aspen, right?
I mean, normally, you know, we fill out the controlled substance form, so,
Right.
so that's in detail of, you know, the Ritalin 5 milligrams. In Aspen, we usually put, you know, daily medication administered as ordered.
Oh, okay, so it would just be more generic in there.
Yeah,
So
but we could, I mean, we could,
I
but
was just
again,
curious, I wanna
it's-
make sure it does go in both places though, I would assume.
It does go on both places, but in the controlled substance form, it would be very specific about, you know,
Right.
what it was and the ingredients and everything, and how often.
I'm thinking that's the one that the person giving it would sign, and
Yes.
then the nurse would just put it into Aspen.
That-
They wouldn't have to do both.
but there's
I mean,
two
we certainly could put, you know,
Add,
a lot of, you know, dosage administered by so-and-so, yeah.
there's two different situations though, right? Like one, you have the order from the doctor, and
Mhm.
so the parent is coming in to administer that. And then,
Mhm.
like, I'm just thinking, like, so my child had medication that he had to take daily, or not daily, but the nurse had like a spare dosage in case he forgot. So
Mhm.
sometimes he would go down, and there was a standing order
Yeah.
from the doctor,
Yeah.
and the nurse would give him that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would be like, oh crap, he forgot his medication, and
Yeah.
I would come in
Mhm.
and I would have the pills
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
give them to him
Mhm.
in the nurse's office,
Yeah.
and that wasn't part of the order, right? So that's
It
two
wasn't
different
part of
things.
the
The
amount.
dose that came out of
Yeah,
the nurse's
yeah,
office, so
right.
that didn't get documented, right? Cause that was me giving it to him.
Unless we just, you know, say parent came in and
Right.
administered daily medication.
But it wouldn't come from their count.
Right,
Of-
so those are two different
Two
things.
different systems,
Right.
that's why we have both systems. And
Yeah.
So I think we've gotta make sure we're covering both in this,
Mhm.
right? The one that comes from your stash and one that comes from stash.
And so,
Oddly
so we
appropriate
go.
for this one, and one that comes from, you know, the one that the parent brings in.
Yeah, and that would just be, you know, parent brought in,
Right.
you know.
Yep.
and-
Alright, so where are
From
we
their
in the
home
policy as
stash.
far as what we're writing? Where are we in the policy for what we're trying to,
Under 5.
Okay. And again, you said, you know, we shouldn't deviate too much from this.
yeah, I do wanna try and keep
Yeah.
it as,
Yeah, so I say keep it,
Can
we
we-
know what the expectations are, that, you know, the nurses aren't gonna be administering it. It lists, we're doing the documenting, you know, we're keeping records at school.
So do we do it like we did above and just say the district shall document each dose? Is that what we did?
medications administered in the building
I mean, this is the
shall
school
be
nurse or
documented.
building administrator,
Right.
Can I get rid of that if a nurse is not in the building part?
I mean, that's right from the statute. I mean, their obviously intent is to, again, follow the school nurses, involve you as much as they can in the process, right up to the administering.
I think because it's such a process, like that is so comfortable to us, like where we're trying to be like, okay, like we have this, where the controlled substances, we have this, we have that, like it's just
Exactly
our
right.
process.
That's exactly right. Yep.
I wouldn't,
So you're fine with that language?
I wonder if we should just keep that language, like,
So,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
exactly what they're
Yeah,
getting at.
yeah.
They want you guys to handle as much of this as possible,
Yeah.
because that's what you do. Yep.
otherwise it's just like, yeah.
Oh, we can't get,
Cause I feel like,
So we
like
can get
That's
rid of
the
this.
thing.
well, then
we're
there's too
gonna
many
end up
hands
doing
in.
that, yes.
Because-
Too many
Because
other
we can give
hands.
them
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
I had a parent that was.
Yeah.
Someone was
right
invested in
at
it.
Well, I'm going back, the regulation, I'm flipping back and forth between the two.
It's better than
Regulation
the
says
medication.
document each dose of
Besides
marijuana
the
administered.
We're gonna end up doing it anyway, right? That part, the documenting part,
So
right?
everything in
Well,
red.
Somehow.
This was an
works
issue
out.
before this.
No, that
policy.
part has to stay by a parent or guardian as per state
Something.
orders.
You just said no.
Yeah, so
Administered
just,
You come
yeah,
and
just,
take your kid out for a break.
No one hoped for the best, yep.
Keep it as is.
So we're not adding by a parent guardian as per the standard.
No, cause that was added in, that was.
Yes, yeah, that's what
Yes,
I- yeah.
Oh, was that added in?
Yeah.
I can't even keep track, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, cause if we look at,
yeah, I'm going back and forth between the two,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, so you have to delete all of that.
yeah.
It's okay, it's just, because, and it'll be fine, cause it doesn't matter who, it's just, we're documenting it.
So it's gonna say, the school nurse or building administrator, if a nurse is not in the building, shall document each
Okay.
dose of medical marijuana administered to a student. Documentation must include.
Yep.
That comes from the statute for sure.
I just couldn't read it. So it's just so
Is that in there?
No, it's
Okay.
not. I didn't
Okay.
because I wanted to go in that direction.
Okay. Okay.
Obviously, 8 is important, you wanna keep that.
Keep what, sorry?
Number 8, that each school shall obtain a written signed statement, but basically a release to everybody involved.
So is that just our, so this might be a discussion for another time, I'm not sure, but is that, in your experience, is that the release that they just use for any other medication?
I would probably do something a little different. I'd use like a release, to be honest with you, that I'd use in like a settlement agreement, that releases the district, the school committee, the whoever you know what I mean, everybody.
Can you drop that?
I don't know what you're talking, okay.
I have that, I can send that,
Okay.
yep,
Yeah, cause I'm not sure what that would be.
yep, I can get you that.
Okay.
So we didn't end up putting anything in here about our policy.
Yeah, because you don't, it didn't make sense, cause as I was writing it, what it was saying was the part that you had next, so I changed that one part about like, North Kingstown requires the school nurse to visually inspect the student's card and maintain a copy of the card and medical file, blah, blah, like, that's what it was saying that you had to have, was that process
Okay,
of them verifying it. So, but then I was going back to the JLCE, and so many of the things in JLCE like contradict what this is saying about like nurses administering and stuff,
okay.
that I don't know if there's a specific part that we wanna point to, but I don't think you wanna point to the whole policy as like a general statement, because it doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
So,
I see, so we're just gonna say, yes, they do look at the card.
yeah,
Yep.
like we have a written
Yep.
process, the written process is that nurses look at the card and keep a file like
Yep.
keep it uncopied.
So we're just saying
Yeah,
they
so
do.
I think
Yep.
that is good enough
Yep.
for what the written policy is as far as verification,
Mhm.
in my opinion, I don't know.
I agree with you.
So I think that, I don't think you need that, if there's something else that we wanna cull out of JLCE, we could, but I would be really careful because everything else is contradicting what it's saying.
Right, cause the
Yeah.
nurse is administrating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is fine, but like I didn't wanna say like, refer to this policy
Mm.
generally, because even the controlled substance part talks about like things that don't apply, so that's where I stopped that part of the journey.
Can I ask you a quick question? Does the Rhode Island Compassion Center license number, does that have the doctor's signature on it?
I have no, I always thought of that as like the pharmacy, I always thought it was like the doctor's prescription, you
Like
know,
the
please give
TPA
Andrew
number?
this with all the
Yeah.
information,
Yeah, I don't
and he can
think
get
it
it filled
does.
at, I have no idea,
It says.
no idea.
So where are we getting the doctor's signature?
It should be under the part that says the signature, written instructions for medical
Well,
marijuana,
okay.
that
Yeah,
includes
yep,
the
it's three,
signature of
3A.
the
Okay,
certifying,
3A.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I think for them to get the
So that's-
card, they have to get it from, like, wouldn't that be the part of the process?
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So where are we landing on the Compassion Center license? Do we,
do we need that? Is
I would
that-
just, I would,
It's-
only-
it's not.
I'd stick with
Yeah,
the
okay, just so there's-
regulations.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's 3 of them, I think, in Rhode Island, like 3 compassion centers, so I don't think it'll be too hard to track them
Thinking as long as you
well,
have like the
since
doctor's
this was
signatures.
drafted, now that it's legal, does
See,
that
I don't know the difference
change?
between, I don't know, but I'm thinking
Can
3,
you get medical grade
I live in
at
Massachusetts, there's
the-
3 in Route 6 within
Yeah.
about a
Yeah.
1 mile stretch, but I don't know if those are compassion centers or something different, I just know what they say
Well, cause
when
they
you
used
drive
to
by.
only be compassion centers, but now it's legal, but I don't know if.
But there's like 3 compassion centers nurses.
But I think when it's a prescription, you have to go
That-
to a
that's what I'm
compassionate.
thinking.
Okay.
I'm-
Yeah.
you can't
Compassion
just go
Center
to
equals like
Yeah,
CVS,
the
right, or
pharmacy.
something like
Yeah.
that, as
Yeah.
opposed to,
There's
like.
gonna be a nurse
Yeah.
practitioner,
Yeah, it
like,
can't be
who's
at a
evaluating.
roadside stand.
Okay.
Yeah, okay,
Fill the
so,
script.
what else do we need to address in this one?
Um, Does that address to the best that we can possibly address?
I think so. I mean, you know, not a lot has changed, but I think just having the conversation and knowing what.
The other,
the plan will be.
Jen, what about the part on page 3 under the administration of medical marijuana by a school nurse, where it says the part about how they won't be, no school nurse shall be subject of disciplinary action by the applicable Rhode Island, like, professional licensing board? Do we wanna also note that they won't be, like, disciplined in the district? You know, like, they can't be in trouble by their principal, they can't be in trouble by the superintendent, like, is that worth noting if they're not willing to do this? I feel like.
Well, number 2 is for administering medical marijuana.
Right. Number 2 is
So-
if they do administer it, the Rhode Island licensing
Yeah.
board
Oh,
can't
I
come
see what
down
you're
and say
saying.
you did
Yep, yep,
something
yep.
wrong, although, like I said, interestingly, that doesn't address the insurance piece.
That you're stuck on that, huh?
Well, I hadn't
It's
heard that,
valid.
and I've
It's
heard a
valid.
lot of them, and it's been a lot of,
Yeah.
that's the first time I've heard that. Yep.
I mean, this is secondhand. This
Yeah,
is
no, it's
not,
interesting though, it's
Because she
interesting.
did call and
Yeah.
she said, so
Valid.
you're telling me?
Well, it makes sense, think about it, whoever's insuring you isn't,
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe not in that
'Cause
spot,
it's
but
not-
maybe in a
it's
different
not
spot.
your
on
thing,
the
right?
right.
And they're on the-
makes perfect sense, I'm
But
just
they're on
surprised
the
that's the first time I
Minnesota.
heard
The
it.
nurse opts not to,
Yeah.
they won't be
Disciplined in the
disciplined
district.
by the district.
Yeah.
For administering?
I
No,
think
for
that- is
now.
that-
for saying
Yeah,
no?
so that would be number 3.
Or after number
Yeah.
4.
I'm just saying, like, and again, I know, I'm not talking about the people that are currently here, like, I know that
Right,
that's
right,
not the
right.
situation, but like, when you're, like, you don't know, like, I would never want it to not be included and then
Maybe
have
part of
somebody.
number 4. Maybe part of number 4.
Which, number 4 on
Schools-
what
So
page?
on page 3,
Okay.
number 4 under the section you were just referring to, schools whose schools nurse declines to administer medical marijuana. That sentence,
Yeah,
have another sentence part of that, that they will
Oh,
not be
yeah.
disciplined.
Yep.
There'll be no disciplinary actions taken by school administration.
here, Jen, I'll just
I
copy
think
this
it's,
as part.
yes, that's
Yeah.
a good idea. So that we.
Just to give it some,
Yeah. Yeah,
and again, not just
yeah, I think
Add
that is protected,
period.
if we can add that.
Something like that.
Anything else? No. Andrew, this look good?
Yeah, I'm just scanning it from top to bottom, I think.
The other part too, Jen, on this policy is we've done before, like purpose and recommendations. And so we could note, like, we could do a thing on the top that says, like, you know, that the North Kingstown School Department is adopting this policy because of blah, blah, blah regulation. And then we could also note that it's not an FDA sub, like, we can acknowledge that part, like, in the top of the policy, just to, like, note, you know what I mean? You're writing down, like, you know what I mean.
I do.
Is that just if the parents coming to give it and then they leave at the end?
We're just looking at the
Mhm.
very end, the additionally, any medical marijuana taken onto the school campus by the parent, parent's designee or legal guardian must either be consumed, utilized in its entirety by the student, or the excess medical marijuana which is not consumed, removed in its entirety with the exception of any disposable packaging which no longer contains medical marijuana. Is that just for like a day-to-day, I think it's just when.
I think
when
that,
we're-
yeah, I read that to be
Parent
if I
does
come
day-
on with a box full of gummies and Andrew Jr. only needs one, I don't leave the box with him.
Okay.
You know,
Or
so
half.
Just
Take,
when
take
the
one, I'll
parent's
take
coming
back the
on.
rest, I
Yes.
watch you consume it, and now they're
Yes.
not just floating around the school.
Okay.
Yep.
That's when I bring my stash in, yeah.
Well, and that's where like I kept going back and forth on the JLCE part because it was talking about like no students will be allowed to self-carry / self-administer, and then it goes on to talk about like you know there's some pieces in that one that would apply. Like parents or guardians will notify in writing at the end of the school year, will be notified at the end of the school year to pick up any remaining controlled substances. Like that would be, you know, so like you could say maybe like when applicable or like with exception of, like, I don't know, because you don't want to copy and paste all of those things, but also that would apply too, right? Like it,
Yes, so
Yeah.
so yeah, all of our controlled substances are emptied out
Yeah.
of out of the medication cabinet
Yeah.
at the end of a school year, and medical marijuana
Yeah.
would be too, so that we don't have any controlled
Yeah.
substances on school grounds when school is not in session.
yeah.
I would say that's
Is-
implied though through this statement, because it's saying any time that it's taken on school campus. So at the end of the school year, we're not gonna leave that there.
Is, would this be considered legally like a controlled substance?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, on the federal level, yes, and I think the way it's a prescribed medication,
Right.
whether you call it a controlled sub, it requires a prescription, it requires authorization, so.
So I'm just wondering, like,
Like I feel like we should, I wonder if we could reference to JLCE, but say like, note the difference of like the administration, like you need to follow, like the policy, like the procedures should follow everything that goes along with JLCE with the exception of,
I'm wondering if we do it the other way.
I know, I thought about that
Yeah.
too, when we update that one, reference the other one.
Yes, yeah, and just add, you know,
Could I ask, what does JLCE have that we don't have in this right now?
So I don't think we have, but I also may have missed it. The stuff about picking the stuff up,
At the end of the year?
yep.
Yeah, that wouldn't, I don't think
And
that
then the stuff about the students not being able to have it in their bags. And then it also goes on to like field trips and stuff.
Well, this does talk about, this only applies at school, does not apply at field trips or off campus.
Yeah.
That is in here somewhere.
Yeah.
So that one.
Page 2, bottom
Yeah.
of page 2, number 12.
So maybe it's just putting that one piece in the other one. Jen, also when we update this policy, it's not inclusive.
yeah.
So when we update the JLCE, I may want your input as to how. I don't know if it should go on the agenda for future meetings, or if I can just ask you, I don't know how that goes. Just so I'm careful about doing it correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, you would put it on a policy one,
Mhm.
right? For like early June.
This is actually one that
You don't have
skips
to,
policy,
yeah.
it comes right to the school committee.
Yes, it just, you can.
Yeah.
Okay.
So are we gonna add this, or are we gonna, which way are we gonna go with it?
I would recommend just adding that one part about because it's, the rest of it's so not applicable. So I would add to the medical marijuana one, the thing about number 6, which is in JLCE, which is, parents or guardians will be notified in writing at the end of the year to pick up any remaining controlled substance medication. Like you could change it, medical marijuana, parents or guardians should be informed, like, you know, like I would just do something about
Could add that
that.
sentence, right?
That sentence, just change it to be applicable though.
Okay, and we're gonna put that
put it like in the part about, I put it maybe just at the end of the document, honestly. Cause some of it, the first part's kind of about like how it gets into the school procedurally, the second is about administration, and so that to me would be the end of the process wise.
So like under additionally, another additionally, right? Like down at the bottom, where we're talking about additionally and medical marijuana taken. Like you gotta take out what you take in, and then also PS, by the way, at the end of the year.
Yeah,
you
I
gotta-
think it could go right, it could probably be a bullet under, a number 2 bullet under that part,
Yep.
at the very end, Andrew.
Yeah, maybe like say ABC.
Yeah.
So any medical marijuana stored on the school shall be
Yep.
removed at the end of the school year.
Okay, so,
If it's not removed, then we dispose of it with, 2 people signing off.
and that's the policy, that's in the policy, right? I'm gonna take the, yep, I'm gonna take the verbiage right from the policy. So the changes I'm gonna make that are not in here, I'm going to add a purpose and a philosophy. We'll talk about, the purposes to, adhere to the regulations, acknowledge that it's not an FDA substance, but, we need to have the policy in place so that we can support the students as needed. And then I'm gonna add pick it up at the end of the year part. So with those changes, I'm gonna make a motion to move this forward to the school committee. Can I get a second?
I will second that.
Okay, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay.
And then also, it'll get read twice at the school committee, and so if you all see the next, like the draft, and then you say, wait, or somebody mentions something, we can make edits at the school committee level as well, so there will be 2 more opportunities if you
Yeah.
do see something that you want adjusted more.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming
Thank
and
you for
working
coming.
through this with us, I appreciate it. Bye. Okay. Next on the agenda is the restraint policy. So there are 2, again, like a restraint and a regulation.
Hi, y'all, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
I started a red line on the restraint based on,
Is it the April
Yeah.
30th version?
April 30th version.
Which version of that? There's 2 April 30ths.
Oh, there
Yeah.
are?
One has like the date spelled out with dots in between it at the end, and the other.
Oh, it's the JIC physical restraint, that one.
Okay, perfect.
So, and the only thing that I did was to, basically add the changes that were agreed that we would make, based on the mediation. I don't know if there are other things that should be changed.
I mean, this morning, I did go through, I mean, not the procedure, but the policy that you have in place currently mirrors the regulations, the restraint regulations for substance purposes. So the things that we would need to add, I hadn't had a chance to check the red line version yet, Jen, would be like anything that we had in the mediation agreement that would not supersede, but go above and beyond
Yep.
those regulations.
We would change the training though, when the
Yeah,
training is
we have to
happening.
change the training.
So under number 2, staff training, required training, it states that such training shall occur at least annually, not later than within the first month of each school year.
So
But
that's
based on
it's a
when-
rolling.
Yeah, based on when they're certified, that's when the training happens, so we can't have it in there as a specific time of.
So for instance, we just trained everybody, 91 people in between February and March. They're not due to next February, March, so we wouldn't want to do that in September.
Yeah, they just have to, they'll be trained annually
So
as
it's
Trained
required.
annually as
based on
required.
their
Based on their
certification
cert-
expiration.
Yeah.
I think the intent is to have no one not certified before the beginning of this, like within, like the goal, I think, with that sentence, whenever they wrote it, was you want within the first month, like everybody better have the baseline kind of energy. And so I think, is there something that we could put in about new hires or new, like, I think the intent is that within the first 30
Yeah,
days of
any
employment.
new hire who does not
Yeah.
have the required training
Yeah.
must be trained within, and I don't know, I
Yeah.
obviously to forget for Rachel, I would defer to her as far as what that
You know what I
training
mean?
is.
though, like, I think that's the-
it's, we're not training everybody,
Yeah.
so we select who we train, but you
Yeah.
have to,
It's
you
those
are
that are
required to have a
Yeah, the
team in
next
every
sentence
building, so
covers that.
we have to, if there wasn't a team in the building, then I would upload it, or front load getting those folks trained.
Mhm.
But we don't prescribe exactly who needs to be trained. Does that make
Yeah,
sense
no,
to you?
completely,
Yeah.
you're not required to be trained to be in the schools. So.
No, and I think, the 30-day timeline,
I think we're okay with saying that
be-
we're following the certifications, training will be provided prior to the certifications being
Mhm.
expiring, because that is how the training is provided.
yeah.
And if there are additional people that we need to put on that team, we're going to train them, but also no one should be restraining without being certified.
Well, and in fairness, when you look at that, that's really what it talks about. It's not just talking about the handle with care or whatever, that training. It's talking about training the staff on these policies.
Mhm.
So that could
Yeah.
very well be, yes, and we want everyone trained
Yeah.
that if you're not handle with care certified,
So
you
you're
are
not
not
doing
restraining
it.
or
Yeah, I
whatever.
think that's what they're
apologize.
saying about
That's
the
what
first
they're
30
saying,
days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how I normally have handled that is we've created a PowerPoint and we've had every principal show it at their faculty meeting, their first day faculty meeting. Like you do timeline and all these other ones, so that people are very much aware of what the regulations state.
So,
That's
And
what
we've
this is
been
talking
able to
about.
do that, yeah.
so is this, as it's written, correct, such
Mhm.
in terms of training on the policies, such training shall occur at least annually, not later than within the first month
Yeah,
of each school year?
that's accurate.
And then for employees hired after the school year begins, this training shall take place within the first month of their employment.
As long as that's when you're doing all the training regarding policies within the first month of their employment. Do we have an onboarding system where it's not just this policy, but all of our policies are being addressed with people in the
So
first
all,
month?
yeah,
That's one of the questions
It
that's
should
come
be,
up,
but I'm
is
just
like,
wondering
what are
that
the
Do we have that
policies?
Yes.
system where
Yeah, I
you
don't know
come
if
in?
we
well,
have
the
that
policy, when you're
system.
hired, you're provided
That's
with
true, you're given
policies.
policies,
So
that's
you're
right.
provided
Yeah,
with
so
policies.
if you got hired in October and they just got the new PowerPoint in September, that should be part of the onboarding process.
Mhm. Yeah, it's about the policy, that's fine.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes,
I
the
also,
policy, not
in
the actual
training, When I do the
Something
actual
certified.
training, we review the policy too, I give them another copy of the policy, so they're aware.
I think we should make all bolded, because I
So
think,
this is the thing, I don't know about this, I
We
don't
were
think these
just-
are approved.
Training shall be.
I don't remember, I've never seen a commissioner report saying this is an approved training. Not to be
Yep, nope, I got you.
difficult, but I don't remember seeing that ever.
You're very, very right.
where are you?
I'm on the top of page 2.
That's, it's right in the regs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I've never seen it.
that.
I'm questioning where it says, I think we keep it because it's in the regs, but it says the training shall be approved by the Commissioner of Elementary and Secondary Education and shall include all the required information, including, I've never seen approved list of training
I wanna say they
by
don't,
the state. by
No,
the
it sounds like
Commissioner.
you have to send yours to them to get approved. You have to say, hey, is this training good? And they say, yes, it is good. That's how I'm reading it.
That's how I
Oh,
read it too.
The
interesting.
training shall be approved by, it's not, there is an approved training,
Yeah,
it's
'cause
saying,
usually
you
they
need to
send
be,
you a
like,
list, yeah.
I mean,
Have you
all
ever seen that?
yeah,
I've
no, I
never
haven't,
done
I
that.
haven't, I haven't seen it, but it's right, yeah.
and
I've
it's in the
never
reg.
done that.
Yeah, it's right in the reg.
When's the reg from?
Right at the right.
When?
Well,
Sorry.
it's actually being redone, but I think this is what, this
this
is
was redone not that long ago.
21. Yeah, December
that's
14th,
interesting.
2021.
Yep.
I wonder if they have a form for that.
Can you check on that, Andrew?
Yep.
Got it.
It makes sense though, that you wouldn't just want no oversight of what people were getting, like if you're doing a required training, like I kinda get where.
Oh, I get it, I
that
just
would-
don't
yeah.
remember ever, I don't remember that piece of it, it's
Mhm.
kinda interesting.
Well, it's also kind of, it sounds like it was in the pandemic, so,
They never
Yeah.
ask either.
They never ask, they never, so like we have to submit our data,
Mhm.
but they don't ask what system are you using or anything like that.
alright,
And then
so-
frankly, I think that the data they should actually be a little bit more complex, finessed, I think. but, yeah, please don't put my name in there.
Nope. That's right.
So, but Andrew, I had a question about this, like, so this was in the agreement, but do we actually have to put this in our policy?
I don't think it would.
Which one, where are we, Jen?
No.
I'm under F.
Yeah, this is what I was worried about, things in a mediation agreement going
Yeah,
into
that
a
should,
policy.
that should not go in there.
Yeah, I was just cutting and pasting, so,
Yeah, yeah.
You could put,
Yeah, nope, that wouldn't go in.
okay.
what part of it though?
That entire yellow.
Yeah, the district will continue its ongoing training as required is
Yeah.
fine, but the yellow,
This part that I highlighted in
Yep.
yellow, right? Okay.
Yep.
Are you just deleting that?
Yeah, I was waiting for you to put your finger away so I knew you were done reading it.
Oh, I was done. I was just looking at this sentence now. The district will continue its ongoing training as required by law. What law?
The regulations, visible restraint regulations.
Shouldn't we like reference that though? Cause I don't think it's referenced.
Do you have it up above anywhere?
where,
No.
where are you, Erin?
I'm on F, and it says the district will continue its ongoing training as required by law. Like,
Maybe we should put
I don't
the
think it's
statute number.
anywhere else.
Oh, that it has to be done? Well, I think we, in the, let me see.
It's not anywhere
It's not,
above in the
it doesn't
document.
precede it. Like, it's
It's
not,
not
it
in
might be at the
our
bottom,
policy.
but
It's
it's
like a
not the
random
top.
statement.
Yeah.
Yep.
It may have been in the top of the mediation agreement and I just didn't.
So, I have something for the next paragraph.
You know how much I, like, the word periodically thrills me as well.
Yeah.
No, like, I mean, like,
Promptly.
I know.
is that F, is that something with the regulation or is that something with the agreement?
F, what
There's
is
so
in
many
the
pieces of
agreement?
Yeah,
in front of you right now.
I'm trying to work off the regs and the policy. That, I mean, the mediation agreement, that was the language that Jen had put in.
Yeah, anything in red I took right from the mediation.
Okay, so the mediation agreement stated that we needed to continue ongoing training as required by law, which again, we need to define which law,
Yep.
and shall update RIDE periodically as trainings take place.
That we
Like,
need to do in
so,
our policy?
I mean, I don't have, I mean,
It seems redundant, that's all.
well, but I think to Erin's point, we're trying to find out where it says they have to have the training in the actual policy, correct?
Yeah.
yeah.
That's next,
Yep.
advanced staff training. So there's two different trainings, so training on the policy, and then there's actual training on how to do.
That's correct.
Yeah. And so is
the
the
next
one,
paragraph is a little bit problematic.
so is the mediation, like language that Jen put F in red, referring to the general training that all staff gets about this, or is it in reference to ongoing trainings for those who are trained to restrain?
See, I think it's the former. I mean, because if you look at the regs, it talks about B, this also has the language, training shall occur annually, not later than the first month, but that's talking about training the staff on our restraint
Yeah.
policy, on our DL, so that's the one that would go to everybody,
Yeah.
right? It's not, the other stuff, I keep wanting to say handle with care, I'm sorry. but
Safety care
Safety care.
is
That's
advanced
for the,
training.
right, that's for the tailor-made specific
So
people
my
that need
question
to do the
is,
restraints.
yeah, so my question
Right.
is, in the mediation agreement, is what we agreed to, you finding it?
Yep, I got
Is
it.
what we agreed to that our district will continue to ongoing training for all staff, or that we will do continuous ongoing training for the advanced staff?
I think it's twofold, to be honest with you. I think
Okay.
we're required by the regulation to provide the entire staff with the annual, hey, this is what we do. And then whatever that annual process is with the safety care, that we're required to do as well. So if I'm safety care
Where should
trained,
sentence F go? Let me try to say it in a different way. Look at
Yep.
our doc on your computer. But we moved it, so I don't know if it's gonna be,
F.
identification, yeah, I mean, we have a section on training though, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
but
already
one
put it-
is required training for everyone and the other one is advanced staff training. I think what Erin is saying is.
do we have to
what is that?
notify RIDE any, like,
I think you're notifying right on both. Am I not answering the question?
No, you are. I just like, I wanted to just make sure that we were in compliance with what we agreed to in the mediation
Yep.
agreement, but not like adding additional steps for the administration that they don't, that isn't required with the mediation agreement. That's what I'm asking.
Yep.
So,
No, I think we know, I think that it would be simply a simple email from Rachel or whoever in her office. Hey, this year, as part of the onboarding for all employees, here's the PowerPoint that we disseminated to all employees, and then, do we register the restraint training at all with RIDE?
Nope.
Not at all.
No, because remember
Right.
they asked about whether or not there was a statewide database? I
That's
said
right,
no,
you said
because
no.
there's,
But even with this,
Multiple
who do
systems.
we notify?
Well, this was the problem.
Because isn't
Thi-
it something
thi-
that's
well,
required
this-
that we do?
This was the problem, and this
This is
goes to
why-
Jen, when
what
you
I
had
said.
asked me some questions
why-
about why certain things weren't in, because initially when we had the meeting, Dave Cienko from RIDE was there, and that was some of the pushback that we actually got from RIDE, which is, we don't monitor this. And you, I think, I don't wanna
said-
misquote Dave, but I think Dave might have said, you can send me
whatever.
whatever training you have, but we don't monitor that.
Yes, because I said, okay, I have no
We
problem
only send a number of
responding to
restraints
RIDE and submitting to
That's
RIDE,
That's all we want.
to whom and for what purpose?
yeah.
Because there
But
is
we agreed,
nobody,
but we agreed to something, so.
Yeah,
We agreed
I
to do it
still
as
send it to
required by
him.
law, which is probably mine. I mean, we're not really required to.
Mm-hmm.
I think it says right here that RIDE has to approve it, whether that was
I was
happening
just
or
gonna
not.
send it to
I think
David.
we would say something, we train our folks annually on this, and
Remember,
here's what it is, that's what the regulation requires, that's pretty clear.
Okay, so for
Whether we do it or not, or
ongoing-
RIDE wants it or not, that's what the reg requires.
no, but that's what I was pushing back on, is like, what, great, I tell you, but then what?
So,
There
It's
was no
just an
answer
email
to
that they
that.
have, and they haven't.
And I have proof that I sent
That's
it.
exactly right.
okay,
In fact, I should
coming
probably
back,
do that soon.
coming back to the sentence.
So you're asking
Yeah, it's
where
my
the
list.
document to be placed.
No, Andrew says it should be in both places. I got that answered. So my question is, no, it's fine. But like, we'll continue ongoing training. What does that mean?
As required by law, so we're required by the
Yeah.
regulation here to train or to let the people know, train them on our policies and
All staff have
procedures
to be trained on
annually.
the policy.
So that's what we would do.
And then we have to have a building team that is
Advanced trained.
in
Yep.
safety care.
And to me, but my understanding of that comes up when RIDE, I don't know if they do spot checks or if they say a restraint happened, we wanna make sure who's trained, we would have to provide that, but we wouldn't give it
They
to them
don't have to
proactively.
ask that, yeah.
Right.
We just give it to them.
Do we, is there a law that we should be referencing or a regulation?
Yeah, we would reference this regulation, I give you, want me to put the site in here?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so put it under, like, put it where Jen put what law, put it
Yep.
there. And then can we define periodically
I would
more?
just say annually. I'm gonna
Upon
submit it,
completion of ongoing training, like what, like,
I
this is-
think what I would do is would submit it with our RIDE, data.
This is for
You know what I'm saying?
ongoing
Yeah.
training, so
See,
like if this
but-
is the part that,
But it's also periodically as the training takes place, and I think we
Yeah.
were kind of explicit about that, Rachel, when we negotiated
Yeah.
this, which is, to your point, different people are trained at different times. I think we
But
actually
it's
used the example of you coming
periodically,
in,
is that
like
the
they
word
got
that
that
was
safety
used
care
from
training,
the
but maybe not until
mediation?
December.
Cut it.
So
Yeah,
then when
So,
we train it,
so
we'll
why
let you
do we
know,
need to
right?
define it? Because it's gonna happen when the training takes place. We can't identify in this policy when the training's taking place, so periodically, it's being updated right periodically
As it takes
training
place,
takes place.
right.
And so as training takes place, goes back to periodically of when it's going to happen.
And I think that was delivered by, especially, now that I'm recalling it, it's because Rachel had just come in and we were talking about that. Look, she's training folks, but she just got here, some of it's going to be October, some
It
is
was
going to be.
CPI, and I
whatever.
needed more trainers,
Yep.
and one of my trainers busted their shoulder, so it took longer than we
Yeah,
expected.
and all they wanted to know is, as you're
Where,
training
yeah.
people, let us know.
But it's a continual update, correct?
I thought I would send it to them annually when I did the data,
okay, so that's my
But-
point.
because that'll
But
be my
it says it
trigger.
has to be as training takes place,
Yeah,
so
but you
somehow
mean
we have to
periodically
remember.
and
I understand what
annually,
you're
two
saying.
different things.
Like, so you
So
don't
we did
forget.
12 trainings, after every training I'm expected to report that to RIDE?
Well, that's what you agreed
if that's
to
what we
in the
agreed to,
mediation.
we're gonna have to.
No, that's how we're defining periodically.
Well, it says as the training
No, it
takes
says
place.
as the training takes place.
That's what I'm saying, like,
Bring me to your next mediation.
Yeah, okay, in
This
close
is why I
proximity.
didn't wanna do it, because.
I know you didn't wanna do it, but.
Because, like, who is it going, it's busy work, I'll do it, but it's busy work, because it's
just
not going to
email
anyone.
David and
No one's
give
reviewing
it to
it.
him
And just
and then we have
cross it off
proof
your
that
list.
it's done and.
I will, I'll do it.
So maybe like as part of like the training that you do, like with what you have to do, like just kinda add a note of like sending that
Send
email.
emails.
And by the way, as
Add it
it
to
takes
the
place,
file.
if you're training, if you're doing 3 trainings over the course of the month, if at the end of that month you say, we've trained A, B, C, D, and E, I don't think as it takes place, I don't interpret that to mean the day
Right.
after.
No, all
In
right,
here, anywhere
that's okay.
else.
Right, that sounds like,
I'll update it as we go.
could be
No,
quarterly,
so
could
can
be
you
sent
And I'm
out
assuming it
there.
goes to David, cause I don't know, so it.
I
don't
would send
either.
everything to David.
and you could do it quarterly, and that way it's in there.
I'll just do it right after the training, I'll forget. The other thing too is I download, just so you're aware, I download all of their certificates and I send them to HR,
Thank you.
cause I have them as a download, so
Is
I
that in
keep
this
them and
policy?
save them. It's not, but I think it's
not, it's not something that's
required,
she's
but I
doing
do
it, so
do
you
that
have it.
for our own.
But I guess I was asking, should it be? Like, is that a good practice
don't-
to follow, or good,
I
like,
don't think we need to put it in the policy.
I mean, our only concern, from a legal perspective, if someone's doing a restraint, that they have the appropriate training. That's,
I think that's it, and then we have that as documentation. And another nice thing about Safety Care is it's a really nice online, if we ever needed it, like this minute, I could go in there and pull it. Within a minute, I could pull their cert. So it is helpful, but I have been doing that and sending them
Yep.
to HR for their files. The next one, the next paragraph is a little bit problematic because of the difference between basic training and advanced training.
where are you, Rich?
Where it says advanced staff training, after F, at the start of each school year, North Kingstown School Department Administration shall identify staff that are authorized to serve as school-wide based resource, assist other staff in ensuring proper administration, of physical restraint and crisis intervention. And I don't, this is probably in the reg, but
It's right out of the reg.
usually go by physical management and crisis de-escalation, but we can go with that word.
Yeah, it's right
These-
out of the reg.
These staff members shall participate in advanced training and the use of physical restraint and crisis intervention beyond the basic training of the policies offered to all staff. Cause they're not all getting basic training in safety care, they're getting the basic training in policy.
You lost me, say that again?
So it says here, will participate in advanced training in the use of physical restraint crisis intervention beyond the basic training offered to all staff. The basic training offered to all staff is on the policy, not on the actual use of crisis intervention and,
Right, but this person, if I'm reading this correctly, you're going to identify a staff person who's going to be, who's gonna serve as the school-wide resource to assist other staff. That person has to have more than just the basic policy training.
that's
Yeah.
our safety care teams that are in our building.
There you go.
but I think Rachel
Right,
to,
but I wanna clarify that this looks like that everyone, it just, when I read it, I thought, oh, I have to basic train everybody on safety care in the whole district? That is
well, you do,
8 hours of,
because- well, not,
no,
but
on policy,
hold
not
on.
the training itself.
Yeah,
listen for a second though, go back up to A through E.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what they're referencing, and that's not just understanding this policy, like, that's how to, like, there's other things in there, that's what they're referencing, in my opinion.
Yeah, the way I read this policy, everybody in the district is trained
Should have
on
A through
E,
F.
A
Yeah.
through F.
Which is the part of policy.
I can't even find it through F.
No, we can't train everybody on interventions that may preclude the need for restraint, including de-escalation of problematic behavior.
That's
That
not
is
possible,
safety
and
care.
not a- and not
That's an
every district
8-hour
does-
training for every
so-
single person in this district.
We didn't write this.
I'm
Like,
just
right?
saying
We didn't
right
like
now.
this, yeah, like,
No, because it's
Yeah.
two things. It's training, everyone has to be trained on policy, and then you have to have people who are advanced training in teams per building, which we have done all that.
that,
But there's no way
this is a current policy.
But
types
yeah,
of
this-
restraints.
Yeah, this is the current policy
Okay.
that's
Is
been
that
in
part of the
place
reg, though?
since 2020.
I believe, I went through this morning, I believe it's actually.
You said it was part of the
Yeah,
reg.
Yep.
That part's all
So-
part of the reg?
I'll tell you in 2
No one's
seconds.
doing this then, like no one in the whole state.
We can be the worst.
Uh,
Yeah. Or we need
No,
to
we
like
need to-
push back on it.
well,
Yeah.
we just need to take a.
let's take a minute and
Before
read the
we say
regulation a
what
little
we're-
bit, because
so-
Okay,
this.
so here's what I'm gonna recommend. I'm gonna recommend that you all go through this policy
Yeah.
A little bit more.
and come back to us with,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right out of the regs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Because E says, identification of school department staff who have received advanced training, that's different than ECD.
I don't think so either.
So not everyone's getting advanced training. Advanced training is your physical
No,
restraint
yeah.
and de-escalation.
Nobody was saying that they do. What I was saying is, when we were talking about the lower part, Rachel was saying that it was talking about the policy, but it's a little bit more than that based on the reg. But they need to, like, what that's saying to me is that training shall be approved, blah, 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 and then it says, the department, so the training should include the school department's physical restraints and crisis intervention with student policy, so this policy, right? Interventions that may preclude the need for restraint,
Which
including de-escalation of problematic behaviors. Types of restraints and related safety considerations, including information regarding the increased risk of injury to a student when an extended restraint is used, and then administering physical restraints in accordance with known medical or psychological limitations and or behavior. And then that last part is identification of school department staff who have received advanced training in the use of physical restraints in crisis as further set forth in this policy. So they're saying, like, all staff should be trained on who has been advanced trained. That's how I read E.
I'm reading this differently. Cause when you look above, it talks about what the training shall such training shall occur at least annually up further, later than within the first month of each school year, the training shall be approved, include all these different things. To include in that initial training,
Because when you read the first sentence, the North Kingstown School Department Administration shall designate personnel to determine time and method to provide all staff with training regarding the school department's physical restraint and crisis intervention with
Policy.
students' policy. Right?
Yes,
So
that's
all
different.
staff need the policy,
Policy,
that's what we're
yep.
saying. Such training shall occur at least annually.
Yep.
For employees hired after the school year begins, this training shall take place within the first month. Okay, end of paragraph. That's what needs to be provided to everybody. Then it says the training shall be approved by the Commissioner of Elementary and Secondary Education. I think the regulations are just not clear,
And shall include all the following information.
right?
and
But
that would be the advanced
but-
training though.
Right, this is not the training, that's separate, because the first paragraph is saying that everyone's trained on the policy.
Right, that's what.
If you read further down
See.
in this policy, it says that only personnel who have had training in accordance with this policy may administer physical restraint. So if you read this policy, it
Mhm.
says that everybody in the district can administer a restraint.
That's not true, though.
Well, I'm just telling you,
Yeah,
that's
right,
what the
that's-
policy.
that's
Ongoing
not-
advanced training, I think that's what we have to
And they
clarify.
differentiate advanced training, because if you look at
Yeah, they did.
2.3C, that then talks about the advanced training.
Training, yeah.
And then the content is D of the advanced training.
What's the reg name?
I'm sorry, what?
What's the reg number?
The reg number is 200 RICR 20-30-2.
One more time?
200 RICR 20-30-2.
I will say A through E is absolutely part of the advanced training.
You're talking under D?
Yeah, under
And
advanced,
yeah, it gets
under
changed
advanced
a little bit.
staff.
Right, right.
I wonder if these A, B through,
I think B is, I think you're reading it a little too literal. I mean, I think B is just that, again, we're going over the policies, we're explaining de-escalation techniques to all staff, we're identifying to all staff. Andrew and Rachel have the advanced training, the crisis team is to be called in when you need a physical intervention. That's the training that goes to all the staff. Then you have the advanced
So
training that goes to
this is what's problematic.
B. Alright.
That is 8 hours of training, or 9 of the 12 hours of certificate training.
So why don't
Do you
we
see what I mean?
have Andrew get some clarification?
Yeah, I
On the
think
right.
so, because
Can you do that? Because it sounds like there's a disconnect
the
between.
same thing with this.
Yeah, I mean, we're really getting a clarification on the regs.
That's what I just
Yeah.
said.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cause I think we know what they mean, but that's not exactly the way it's
Who
written.
did the training this year?
The
like-
annual training?
Yeah, for the whole staff.
We did that at the beginning as part of orientation,
Yeah.
going through policy and talking about restraints and who can restrain
Yeah.
and can't restrain,
Alright.
and then we did the
So you did it. You did it. Or each. Like I asked
Oh,
who
we
did
did
it. Yeah.
Well, administration, like,
Yeah.
so,
Okay.
we need to go through this.
Yeah, so we
because
can
Yeah, we need
it's
to go
not-
through, there's some funky language in here,
It's-
like some of our regulations are.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not reading it as restrictive as you guys are, but that's,
I'm not either, but we can work through it.
Yeah, I can reach out to David.
Because the reason why I am is because I know we're here, the program's restraint policy, not a problem. Interventions that may preclude the need for restraint include de-escalation of problematic behaviors. That is almost all the safety care training. Safety care training is a minimum of 12 hours, and the component that addresses this piece is almost 9 hours of
For the advanced training, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to do it for B. I mean, I
It
guess
did-
what.
did say that, cause this is
Alright, so here are
incorporated.
some interventions that we use
Yeah.
instead, here are some de-escalation
Yeah.
techniques we use instead of restraint training. I
Yeah,
think
that
that's kinda
doesn't
where I'm
seem
at.
the same.
But let me talk to David, and
Yeah,
I can
ask
get
him what they
something.
mean,
Yep.
because it's only when I kept rereading this that now I'm making myself crazy with it. Like types of restraints and all that, right? Those are also.
Yeah, I mean, that
That's
seems like
easy, we could do a
It
list
seems,
of that.
it seems kinda silly, you train people who aren't gonna restrain what the types of restraints are, but that's what it says, I mean,
This again is part of that 9 hour, this piece right here, number 4, is part of the
We have to
9
do
hour
that, right?
training.
yeah, but I
That's-
still think this is a very
No,
High level.
10,000 foot level,
Yeah.
Any
hey,
district that
everybody
goes
pay
through-
attention to this stuff. If you have a crisis, this is the team, they have the advanced
Mhm.
training, that,
Yeah, like this is how you notice when you need to get the
Yeah.
advanced team. Like this is how you. Yeah.
Okay, so
Can we
you're
look at the? Do we
Yeah.
want to see if there's
This is
anything
a
that's
lot.
not?
Those are all,
what?
to train people on that piece. I mean, we could do like a basic statement, but it's not training. Do you know?
but I think that's what they're talking about. You have the advanced training, which is much more hands-on,
Yeah,
specific
and
to
then-
restraint, and this
yeah.
is just that 10,000 foot view so people understand it.
Okay.
And so I would ask when you review that you also review the regulations in keeping in mind with the fact that we've done away with all the regulations and incorporated them all into
The policy.
the policy.
Yep.
And so if there's anything in that regulation, and one thing that I did notice that was in the regulation that is not in the policy is a procedure for investigating complaint.
But that is in the, we've agreed to add that in under the settlement agreement, so
Okay, yeah.
that was one of the things that
Yeah.
they were absolutely correct on.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
it's in our regulation, but it's not in our policy.
And I think there are like 4 or 5 paragraphs from this mediation agreement that basically will cut and paste into the policy as well.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think I already
Yeah, I
got
saw
them
that, I was
all
reading
in
through
there.
it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yep.
so if you can look at the
Yep, 100%.
regulations also, and see if there's anything else that needs to be pulled out and put in there.
Yep.
And then we'll see this
I liked this part.
at a future meeting. Okay, anybody have anything else?
I'll definitely have to print that.
Is there anything?
Just in a nutshell, Janice, I'm looking at this carefully, I think you got the ones that needed to be pulled out and popped in. I'll double check it, but I think they're there, yep.
What is so the only thing that we're checking on is to see the interpretation of the regulation. That's the only
That
follow through on this
23B,
one?
yeah, or 2.3B, excuse me.
I will say
I
that
think-
in the regs, it said the procedure for investigating complaints is following the chain of command policy, and to me, that did not seem like it was a good enough process, for something like this, but that's just me.
Can you point to
This
where
one
you
I
are?
actually think we should
Down at the
broaden.
very, very
Sure,
bottom.
any place at Davisville Academy, it should be any child that
Yeah, you can expand
suspected,
that.
I think we
Yep,
should
that's
expand
fine.
it and
Okay.
not make it so narrow.
What part?
So we have to.
No, two of you were saying different things. So Rachel was just saying something about something and I went to that part, and then the other part was the part you were saying. So what were you just saying, Rachel?
I was saying that if you go all the way down to the red paragraphs that Jen added, the last one says the district shall provide the parent guardian of any child placed at Davisville Academy. I should think that should be expanded, that any child that, may be at risk for,
No, it's supposed, why do we even need that? Doesn't it go to all parents and guardians, period?
no.
We have it on our website now.
Number 3 says
It's
the
on my
district shall
email.
provide parent or guardians with a copy of the RIDE brochure on restraints with the first
First
notice.
notice.
Yes, they would
But
get
I
it
thought
once
there
the-
was something that said,
Any child placed at DA will get a copy of the brochure.
I'm just saying it should be more than DA, that we should expand that.
It should be included with any
Everybody,
IEP meeting,
yeah.
I would think, right?
Well, it's
Or
not
more.
just students in
Not
special ed that
necessarily.
that this is
It's not
used,
part of,
no.
Alright, we could talk about like what
Well,
that
let's
inclusive
figure out how to
language,
make
yeah,
it-
that I don't know, you
I
know,
would
what
prefer
say,
to
I
just-
feel like that's kind of like calling out.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, I can
And
envision
they-
a
and
situation
to
where a
be very
parent just has
honest-
a kiddo with a reading goal, all of a sudden they're getting a notice of a restraint that
Yeah.
might kind of freak
Like,
people
why-
out.
And we've
too.
had less restraints at Davisville Academy than we've had in another school, like significantly less,
So why, when it says the district shall provide parents or guardians with a copy of the RIDE brochure on restraints with the first notice
Restraint
of
in an academic
restraint
year.
in an academic year and with any subsequent restraints. So my kid gets restrained on a Monday.
Yeah, we have to give you notice of that, we give you a copy of the restraint form, and we would have to give
No,
you a copy
it
of the
says you're
brochure.
giving me the brochure.
Yep, and if it happens
We have-
again on a
Yeah.
Tuesday, you get the brochure again.
But we were also required to give them a copy of the, we were required to communicate with you that it occurred, so we do that, but we'd also give you a copy of the brochure.
Why can't the restraint form be part of like the Aspen checkoff?
We need to ask.
The brochure, you
I mean,
mean?
like
Yeah.
everyone in the district reads it.
Yeah, just gets it.
I mean, this, yeah, to me, this almost begs to be like a prior, not a prior written notice rather, but like a procedural safeguard thing where we have,
Yes.
Mhm.
here's the website,
Yep.
here's our
Yes.
restraint, here's our investigation procedure, so
Yep.
hey, parent,
Yep.
here's
Mhm.
everything, one-stop shopping, this is the information you
Yeah.
need.
I will say it's on everybody's email at Davisville Academy, it's on my email, it's on all the coordinators' email, so when you get an email from me, you're getting all these things immediately attached.
Yeah, and
I-
really adding the Stay Safe website to that,
Mhm.
Yeah. I also
form
added
too.
the mental health one, Let It Out, RIDE mental health resources, which I didn't even know existed.
Every parent should just get this.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm saying if you make it part of the Aspen, like.
I don't know if I have
so
to
you-
check off on it, but like, you don't, do you want, like, we have to check things on those ones?
Yeah.
Like, you have to say, yes, I did
Yeah.
this. I don't know if it's that, but I do feel like you could just, if everyone gets it, then
I'm trying to think of like something else that everybody gets annually,
nothing.
right?
We also
So
don't wanna, but we also, if you put it in Aspen, tell them to check off, and so that, checking off that you've read or give permission, we don't want anything to be misleading where we're saying that we want you to give us permission
Yeah,
to
yeah, I don't think it can be
restrain
that.
your child.
I was just
really wanna
thinking-
be careful at how that is put out there to people.
I was just thinking because it's
Um,
a beneficial brochure that has information for families about places in the state that they can get help with their students, so whether or not their students are exhibiting behavior in the schools
Put
or
it-
at home.
Link it to our student information guide, and that's in there.
Yeah, like I just think it's a helpful document, like
It
your
is.
kid might be
Right.
happy as
Is
a
that
clam
way
at school all
it's
day,
there with
never
all the
needing
information
restraint,
they're
but then they
getting?
go home and it's really difficult and you need resources, like I just think there's helpful information
I
for
would,
parents.
link
here.
it in the student information guide, because that's a document everyone
Yeah, makes
gets,
sense.
and there's, I know we put links, so we'll just need to
Another link?
make sure we put that in there.
What are you talking
Student information guide
Mhm,
that we have,
mhm,
the, I'm sorry, elementary handbook,
mhm,
secondary handbook.
sure.
Yeah, we have
Yeah,
that.
I've definitely gotten that before.
It's supposed to be something you read off on, and Aspen. I think,
That's the problem.
Maybe my
so, but we
maybe
do
my
that,
other
so I
human
think
and my
that's
adult,
where.
maybe my other adult did it in my house.
Okay, I'm gonna
So
make,
in the
The other
handbooks.
human.
I've got a time, I've gotta make a motion to.
Oh, I do too.
Okay. What am I trying to do? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
we'll play around with that. I'll
Let's
work
play
things
with it a
tomorrow,
little bit, yeah.
And we'll
Yes.
move things around and put them where we think they need to be, and then see, and I'll
I
follow up
think it
with Dave.
might just be that, I just got a little panic
Yeah,
when
no,
it
no,
says,
no,
cause
I
that
look at-
basic training,
Yep.
doing all those things is a lot,
Yep.
that's not a,
I think
Basic
Dave will pretty much differentiate.